This week in East Brunswick, the Township Council meeting, generally held in the municipal courtroom, had to be moved to the library meeting rooms to accommodate an unusually large crowd, estimated at between 350 and 500 people. The issues of the evening included school budget cuts, the Fairgrounds North soccer fields, and the revaluation. The first and perhaps most hotly contested issue was the school budget. Stay tuned for our coverage, which will concentrate on the budgetary views of council members, school board members, and private citizens as expressed during the meeting. This week's sports feature will look at Coach Pellegrino and this year's high school tennis teams. In commemoration of Historic Preservation Week in town, Sharon Karmazin will have as her guests in the studio Grace Auer and Marion Whitman of the East Brunswick Historical Society. But first, let's enjoy the talents and antics of the East Brunswick High School Class of 1983, performing in its annual variety show. The 3 sold-out nights of entertainment at the high school auditorium included the best that student musicians, dancers, and dramatists had to offer. Traditionally, one of the unwritten themes of the show has been a humorous look back at high school life.
Statistics now prove that the current form of discipline at practice at East Brunswick High School, known as in-school suspension, has kept 50% of the students reporting to their classes on time. The student pictured here was saying, "I swear I'll never have an extra cigarette in Senior Park again. I won't be chained up. Oh, no,
We know it, and we show it. We like to sing, blah. We really like to sing, blah, blah. We like to dance, chop.
The time and effort put into the show was evident, and all acts and performers were well received by the crowd. Here's a bit of mystery achievement by Pretending. Our hats are off for a job well done by the cast and crew of the 1983 Senior Variety Show. Now let's join Coach Bill Pellegrino for a look at the 1983 East Brunswick Varsity Boys Tennis Team.
Good afternoon. I'd like to thank everyone who makes it possible for us to present the tennis program. The 1983 version of East Brunswick Varsity Boys Tennis got underway about 2 weeks ago. We presently are 3-0. Today we take on St. Joe's. They're probably the best team in Middlesex County. We have a very young team, getting directly to the team members themselves. At number 1, Dave Weisberg, who is a 10th grader. He lettered last year. We're expecting great things from him in the future. At the number 2 position, we have Jeff Lipsitz. He's a senior, played 3 last year, and has more experience than any of the other boys on the team. At number 3, Doug Lippman, who is also a junior, who played in doubles last year. In first doubles, we'll have either Mike Burney and Jeff Davis, both of whom are juniors, or possibly Ed Chuang and Bob Aiello. The other possibilities in second double, Jonathan Seaford, who is a freshman, and Gary Olsowski, who is a sophomore. Some other people on the team probably should see some action. Jeff Sachs. We had a very large turnout again this year, about 25 to 30 men. And with our new tennis courts, we have 6 courts right on campus. Therefore, it makes it a lot easier to carry a very large number of people. Other teams in the county that are extremely strong, and particularly in our conference, as I mentioned, St. Joe's, probably the best all-around team as far as strength is concerned. And Cedar Ridge, who has a young man who's probably the best tennis player, singles tennis player in the area. Cedar Ridge and J.P. Stevens probably would be the next team in line. Normally these 4 teams are the strongest teams in the conference. We're looking forward to a very highly competitive season. As I said, we're a very young team, and we're hoping that throughout as the season progresses, we will become a little bit better, and perhaps by the tournament time, state and county tournaments, we may improve our record and perhaps get a little bit further than we had in previous years. We've been very successful in previous years based on having excellent athletes, an excellent team situation, primarily because we've always had good tennis players here, and they continue to come up. Thanks very kindly, and you're welcome to come out and watch us at any time.
Hi, this is Sharon Karmazin at the library with This Week in East Brunswick. And with me today I have 2 board members from the East Brunswick Historical Society to discuss some of the activities that group is involved with. Let me introduce you to Marion Whitman and Grace Auer.
Hello.
Grace is immediate past president, and Marion is secretary this year, but they tell me they're really old veterans. They've been with the Historical Society for a long time, and it really is one of their first loves in town. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon.
It's nice to be invited to participate.
Well, we would like to give a lot of our local organizations the opportunity to tell people what they're all about and how people can get involved with them. And that's what we'd like to do here today. So, Marion, can you tell us a little bit about the Historical Society and what they're doing?
All right. We're a relatively new organization, 11 years since we were established in 1971. Our goals are very old. They are to preserve what's left of the history of East Brunswick and to make as many people as possible in our community aware of the history of this township.
I guess so many people are new to East Brunswick since the population has increased within such a relatively small time that a lot of people aren't aware of the historical significance that East Brunswick has. Grace, can you tell us about some of the things specifically that the group is doing now?
Well, one of the things that we're doing, members of our group handle the acquisitions department of the museum, which is a very important part of the history of the community. And we have placed markers on 7 of the older homes. And this year we are establishing a program where the Historical Society is purchasing 10 markers for the older homes of the district, and we are giving the people an opportunity, if they want to participate, to purchase markers for their own homes if they know the dates. And we are doing this because we feel that many people are interested in the district now, especially since we've established the museum. They like to take walking tours, and they would be interested in knowing the age of the homes. So we felt this was a good thing for the residents as well as the community for us to do.
And this will be an ongoing project, is that right?
It will be a continuing project.
Wonderful. Now, you mentioned the museum, and I know that some people are sometimes confused. I understand that the museum has its roots in the Historical Society. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Marion, talk about that.
Well, the idea of a museum was one of the first thoughts in the Historical Society when Rose Seco gathered the first, I think, 8 people in her home in late 71, early 72. She already had the vision of our having a museum and already had her eye on Simpson Methodist Church. The Historical Society had a lot of support from Jean Walling in the early years, and through her, the property was purchased and earmarked for a museum. There were some questions in later years whether the community could afford a museum, whether this was a luxury or something we really needed. Through a museum study commission appointed by Mayor Fox, it was decided that the town could and should support a museum. And through that museum study commission, a board of trustees for the museum was established. Under that board of trustees, the Historical Society has formed the nucleus for the acquisitions committee, as Grace mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been the society's main interest. They donated $3,500 to establish the first fund, and a number of nice things have come in through that fund now.
If people have things that they're interested in giving to the museum, how would they go about doing that?
The arms are always open.
So they can really
Yes,
contact.
yes, Estelle Goldsmith is the acquisitions chairman, and she's always ready to take any donations.
I see. What about your membership? If someone who's watching right now were interested in joining the organization, how would they go about doing that?
Just to contact any one of us, but especially our president, Lena Minnekini, and Doris Herbert. Their phone numbers.
Okay, you want to give their phone numbers? And we'll
Yes.
put them on the screen as you read them, okay?
All right, Mrs. Minnekini, the president's number is 257-4334.
They'll show them, so you
And
don't have to.
Doris Herbert is 254-5917. She is the membership chairman.
I
They'll-
see, and
they'll
you're-
be glad to hear from you, from anyone, and so will we.
I see. Now, your meetings are held generally here in the library, is that right?
Yes.
And what day of the month is that?
The fourth Thursday of the month, and we try to have programs of general interest of history. We've had programs ranging from houses in central New Jersey to the wine industry of New Jersey. Or a NERB program was well received. It's going to be repeated. They're always listed on the library calendar.
Mm-hmm.
They are usually always listed in the local newspapers, and everyone is welcome. We'd love to see the membership expand.
Okay, well, we thank you both for being here with us, and anyone who's interested in learning more about the history of East Brunswick, about getting involved in history of New Jersey, please consider joining the East Brunswick Historical Society. They do meet at the library, and you can give us a call at 390-6767, and we'll tell you when their next meeting is. From the library, this is Sharon Karmazin saying goodbye until next time.
At Monday's Township Council meeting, the library's 3 meeting rooms were filled to capacity with residents curious about the school board budget, the planned Fairgrounds North soccer field complex, and the revaluation. The council adopted the Fairgrounds Bond Ordinance, slating $917,000, including some state Green Acres funding for the development of the soccer fields. The council decided on over $500,000 in cuts from the school budget, in line with recommendations from Township Finance Officer L. Mason Neely. Several school board officials and members of the public addressed the issue. Board member Robert Van Wagner, who called for steeper budget cuts, was critical of the council's decision.
I'd like to state right now categorically that no consultation took place as far as Board of Education members are concerned. The only consultation I had was Friday, was a telephone call from Mr. Baker. That's all. What has happened here is you have just taken a number arbitrarily, turned it over to employees of both bodies, and said that this was arrived at by consultation. It is an infamous lie. In previous years, the council met as a body with the Board of Education as a body. Ideas were exchanged from all sides. This did not take place this year. We were looking forward to this, to really present all views of the Board of Education, not one view. I think the council has failed in its duties, and I intend to pursue this with the Commission of Education.
my responsibility as president of the council to make sure that the process of consultation is carried out correctly. So as part of that, I checked with our township attorney, who in turn checked with the board attorney last week. They both agreed that according to the statute, the process of consultation could be the staffs of both bodies meeting to exchange information. However, I was not satisfied with that, so I called up the office of the State Board of Commissioners of Education, and I talked to Mr. Schaffler. And I asked Mr. Schaffler, who is a representative of that office, if consultation required a meeting between the two bodies. And he said, no, it didn't. That the Board of Commissioners had been very specific in a previous case that it did not require that it required an exchange of information, that if information had been exchanged through the two bodies, and in fact, the majority of the board agreed with that, then that was all that was required by law. What the law says is consultation. It does not require a meeting.
Reading that statute, I think the lawyers are very smart, both of them. I bow to them for the simple reason. Perhaps you did not break the law, but they taught you how to bend the law.
School Board President Dr. David Seiden offered a different point of view.
The point is that the majority of the board did, following this consultation, come to the conclusion that the consultation was adequate and that the figure that was arrived at could be handled by the board. It's true that the board will, after the council formally takes action, come to its own conclusion as to how we will accept the cut, how we will handle it. It is also true that, by consensus, the board did indicate that we would, subsequent to the council's action, take action on the matter of school closing. It is not true, as another speaker stated, that the entire cut is accounted for with the closing of a single school, specifically Irwin School. The closing of that school will still leave the board approximately $100,000 short of the amount that is being discussed as the cut by the council. The board will have to make those reductions in other areas. It is also not true to say that simply by closing the school you have really reduced nothing. If we have reduced nothing, that would certainly be a surprise to the people who will be losing their jobs as a result of this budget cut, as a result of the school closing. It might be interesting to the members of the council, to the staff, and to the public, that as a result of the reductions that the board was planning to make in any event, plus the additional reductions, and they are substantial additional reductions in anticipation of the budget cut that the council is discussing, there will be a total reduction of 34.5 full-time positions, paid salary positions in the school district, plus an additional reduction of 8 hourly workers. These are positions ranging from 16 elementary school teachers to math specialists, reading specialists, librarians, principals, business teachers, 2 special ed teachers, secretaries, health aides, school aides, cafeteria workers, cook managers, and so on and so forth. A total of 34.5 full-time paid positions and 8 hourly positions. In my mind, that cannot be translated as no cut at all. I think that the cut that is being discussed by the council is responsible. I think that the board will be able to handle it. I think that the school system will be able to handle it, which is most important, and I think that the school system will be able to progress satisfactorily subsequent to that cut.
Many citizens also spoke out on the issue.
My name is Kurt Whedon. I live at 2 Windbeam Court in East Brunswick. Madam Chairman, I think that it certainly sounds that the Township Council has acted within the parameters of the law in dealing with the Board of Education. But I think here the issue goes beyond the law. That for those of us who have followed closely the Board of Education over the last several months, we know that there's a deeply divided position within that board as to what should be done. And really it's an action here that you are not constrained by law not to do. And that is to take one of the gentleman's suggestions earlier and possibly meet with other representatives who take different positions on that board that are somewhat contrary to the school administration itself. By making a dollar decision at this point in time, and I recognize the constraints of time on you, a very, very short period of time to act, it more or less mandates some of the decision-making that would go forward in the board itself. If the dollar amount is low or high, it's going to alter certain choices that would be made. And there are, as I mentioned, alternatives and options that are being discussed within that board that have really not come to the table and won't, unless you get a cross-section of views. That would require stepping back and probably before using your own time frame of last Monday's meeting, taking action to do this kind of step prior to April 28th. And I recognize the hardship that puts on this body. But in order to take all of the facts and put them in front of you and end up with the correct dollar amount and really set the tempo for what decision will be made by the board, I really feel that's a prudent and responsible action that needs to be considered by this body. Thank you.
Before the final vote was taken, each council member, having heard the public debate, spoke about the schools and the budget.
I've spoken with, I guess it's 6 members of the school board, and I've tried to get in touch with the others but was unable to, and I've spoken with Mr. Neely and Dr. Sweeney. I've read the reports and the documents that were given to us over these past couple of weeks. I spoke to people on the school board who had different views as to whether we should cut large sums of money, the sum of money around the number that's been recommended, and those who felt that no dollar should be cut out of the school budget. I'm not quite convinced that we could not close 2 schools and have no educational detriment to the school system. I'm not quite convinced of that. But what I am convinced of is that in the matter of our children's education, we have to proceed cautiously, that we shouldn't take a step forward that we might have to take a step back from in the future. If we're going to have to start trimming down the size of the school system in town because of diminishing enrollments, then let's do it a little bit at a time, rather than a large chunk, take an axe to the budget and then regret it later. I support the figures that Mr. Neely came up in consultation with the school board administration, and I think it's a reasonable step. And if in the future further reasonable steps are to be made, then we'll make those, but let's not jump ahead of ourselves.
Now, I requested the final report of the ad hoc committee studying the possibilities of school closings. This is a Board of Education report, not the council. And going through this report, says the committee still adheres to the position that with 2 schools closed, an effective educational program could be maintained and there would be sufficient room for potential growth. In fact, the committee's enrollment projections allow for more growth than planning data or past experiences indicate. Their report, not our report. By closing 2 schools, there would be a $746,000. There are some board members that wanted that $746,000 cut. One school would be, this is going to probably be Irwin School here. And with the roofing material, it'd be $517,420. And there has been some board members that says $1 million could be cut. And there's other board members with 1.5 million. Now, I mean, it's very baffling to me where all year long the mayor spoke about the Board of Education's cost on the tax rate. And here we have an opportunity with the council to look at the budget, and we're in a very favorable position to make some substantial cuts.
Amongst Board of Education members and also among the public in their feelings about the education and the education of the children of this township and how much it costs to do that. I'm simply amazed each time that Mr. Hudak comes forward at a council meeting, especially when there's a large public hearing involved, and consistently talks about how much money he is willing to cut, when in fact Mr. Hudak does not look at the benefits that the residents derive from any of the ordinances that we pass, or especially in this case about the education of the children of this township. Rather than, we are all council members on this council, and I view my job as being one that should be responsible, not looking for cutting $1 to $2 million as advocated by some of the school board candidates early on in the campaign. Personally, I have asked some of the school board candidates early on where they would cut that $1 or $2 million. I did not receive any response except in general categories. Cut 50,000 or 60,000 from any particular category, and not, as I say, not receiving any detailed information. The school board budget this evening is one to me that's very critical and important. And I cannot sit back and simply recommend a $1 or $2 million cut, which obviously is going to mean at least one school and probably 2 schools being cut. To me, cutting 2 schools is just cutting the jugular vein of education. I'm not willing to do that.
Since my own children attend public school, elementary school, I share with other members of the council your concern over the quality of education in our community. However, I do support the reduction of the $517,000 from the school budget. I feel this size reduction is one that's demanded by the recent results of the school board election. However, it's one reduction that will not affect the quality of education that our children receive. As we all recognize, in the final analysis, it's the quality of the staff and the programs that are critical to a good education. So I too will support the resolution to reduce the school budget by $517,000.
Thank you. I have several comments to make. First of all, I would like to point out something that seems to have been lost here. The fact is that the budget was submitted to the public and defeated with no schools being closed. I would like to point out that at least the council is able to arrive at a decision which will have some impact on the budget, which is more than I can say, perhaps, for another body. I would also like to point out that there are a lot of factors involved in how the council is directed by law to approach a budget once it's been defeated. I have a memo which is given to the various boards of education throughout the state and to their administrative secretaries and attorneys from Lloyd Newbaker, who is the executive director of the New Jersey School Boards Association. And in that memo, he is telling school boards how to go about determining whether or not to appeal reductions made by councils. And one of the things that they say in here, based on case law, where it was a reduction had been appealed after a council had made a cut, is that the governing body may seek to effect savings which will not impair the educational process. But its determinations must be independent ones, properly related to educational considerations rather than voter reactions. Now this case comes rather close to home because it is actually the Board of Education of East Brunswick versus East Brunswick Township Council in a case decided in the early 1960s when the East Brunswick Township Council reduced the budget. It was appealed by the Board of Education, and one of the reasons they appealed it was they said it was based on voter consideration rather than educational consideration. So the next step then is, what are the educational considerations? Now, the report from the ad hoc committee studying the possibility of school closings has been discussed previously tonight. However, I would like to read from page 4 their final conclusion. It says, from an educational point of view, it would be better to conduct instructional program in 8 schools. This means a reduction of 1 school. That's what this report says, from an educational point of view. The courts have told us we must consider reductions from an educational point of view. We cannot take into consideration voter reaction. So that is one of the things that we are doing tonight.